So now we discuss another of the two approaches which have been used to improve the lot of women. So one is the anti-poverty approach. So as previously, if you look at these approaches, these are linked basically to the World Bank favorite themes in different in different eras. So in the 60s, World Bank was providing lots of money to developing countries related to reducing fertility or education, population planning. And then there was more focus on equity. In the 1970s, the focus changed when Robert McNamara, who was defense minister, Secretary of Defense in Vietnam, dealing with Vietnam, and he was made president of World Bank in 1970s. He focused the World Bank on poverty or basic needs. So this was the era in which this approach became popular, and this also affected the role of women in development. So the focus was on basic needs and productivity of women in the late 70s and 80s. So basic needs was basically was a little better than the previous approach on economic growth, and because it looked at people and it looked at vulnerable people and focused on them and recognized their worth as compared to previous approaches. And it moved from purely economic themes to a more multi-dimensional approach. So, of course, income generation and wage employment was enhanced, and it was recognized that women should have wage employment. But the focus, its limitations was that it reinforced on basic needs, but ignored the structural issues. So again, it didn't focus on getting more women in the policy making. It didn't focus on getting more women at the more women-friendly laws and policies. It didn't focus on how international economic system exploits women. So these are the areas which were not considered in this anti-poverty approach. This was replaced by the efficiency approach, and it is then linked again by a World Bank policy. And these are the structural adjustment programs. We have discussed it before. These programs basically focused on getting the economy right or getting the prices right. So this was a purely economic approach, and they thought that if the broad economic indicators are good, everything will be fall in place gradually. So if you have low fiscal deficits, low current affairs deficits, low current account deficits, if you are increasing exports, if your revenues are increasing, other things will get better. Of course, these policies failed, but that will come later, of course. So these structural adjustment programs were focused on getting more out of people. So if you are a worker, if you are signing 5 or 10 files daily, you are forced to sign more. If you are producing 5 motorcycles a day, you should be producing more, 7 or 10. And women were also targeted as workers, and it was thought that women should work more in the formal economy. So education and training was thought that if women are provided education and skill training, they will be part of the formal economy and help the formal economy. But of course, with that, they decreased this approach, and World Bank forced the government to increase the education fees and the training fees, which of course contradicted their policies and didn't result in much change. This policy also popularized the gender analysis. Its limitations are as clear that it focused on development. So it looked at how women can help development rather than looking at how development can help women. So it also decreased social spending, and it reduced trade union activity, which of course helped the vulnerable population, vulnerable workers, whether they are men or women. And of course, when the spending was decreased on health, of course, more women were in home, not working outside home, but were in home tending or taking care of the sick. Thank you.